The sleek modern conference room at the Four Seasons Resort in Montecito felt utterly devoid of its usual air of polished exclusivity and prestige. A thick, suffocating pall of tension and dread cloaked the gathering of tightly knit women arrayed around the oval granite tabletop. At the head of the table, gripping the beveled edges until her perfectly manicured nails carved crescent shapes into the cool stone, sat Meghan Markle. The Duchess of Sussex's eyes were squeezed shut in an expression of pure anguish and disbelief, nostrils flaring with each ragged inhalation. All around her, the formerly airtight inner circle was in a state of visible fracture. Of the half-dozen closest confidants assembled, only the icy, imperious Jessica Mulroney still witnessed her best friend's unfolding turmoil with an outward facade of support. The other women exchanged loaded looks rife with trepidation and brewing mutiny. Especially one petite, raven-haired figure seated opposite Meghan wearing an inscrutable poker face, the very eye of the storm about to obliterate her world. "What's done is done, Meghan," the quiet yet stern voice of Alison Davis cut through the tension like a scalpel as she regarded her former close friend across the divide. "There's simply no walking back or obfuscating the chain of transgressions and cover-ups orchestrated over the past few years." Her tone remained unerringly matter-of-fact, yet laced with an undercurrent of rebuke and disappointment. Meghan's eyes snapped open and she leveled her gaze at Alison as if noticing the other woman's presence for the first time. Already her peridot irises blazed with the flickering embers of bristling indignation peeking through the brittle veneer of placid denial she'd fought so doggedly to sustain. "You betray everything we swore never to do in this sisterhood, Alison," she hissed through gritted teeth. "But I have to believe that even now, you can still see reason before crossing that bridge into utter ruination for us all." Alison regarded her coolly, seemingly unfazed by the overt venom and implied threats simmering beneath Meghan's words. When she spoke again, her voice rang with conviction born of profound disillusionment. "No more compartmentalizing or justifying the lies and deceptions, Meg. No more feebly rationalizing or squirming away from the dark reckonings being unearthed." Her lips formed a grim line etched with pain. "For your sake as much as anyone's, the truth is being dragged into the full light whether you want to accept it or not." With that proclamation, Alison reached down to retrieve a smart device she'd been clutching beneath the table's edge. A few deft swipes and the device was connected to a Wi-Fi hotspot displayed on the expansive wall-mounted screens bracketing the room. As the presentation interface faded into focus, Alison leaned back and crossed her arms. She seemed to steel herself for the shockwaves she was about to unleash, expression carved from granite as a two-word banner flashed across the screens. "The Archibald dossier." Instantly, a strangled gasp escaped from Meghan's lips as the first damning artifacts materialized into view. A series of text conversations timestamped from early 2019 detailing meticulous birth planning preparations, the tapped resources, every measure taken for maximum discretion and detachment from the institution. All obscured through a carefully orchestrated smokescreen of falsehoods erected by Meghan's pernicious undercurrent of paranoia and obsessive need for control over her public narrative. Explicit details of the off-book medical facility procured by under-the-table payments and agreements. All oversight bypassed or dismissed through a steady campaign of intimidation and leveraging what few royal privileges she still clung to. On-screen proof of a birth being stage-managed to fit her exacting specifications down to the finest detail. Conversely, simultaneous documentary material flowed forth laying out the parallel, officially sanctioned Buckingham Protocol followed to the letter for the purposes of the Crown, the carefully choreographed announcement schedule adhered to in keeping up appearances for the hallowed event. "Oh my God, everything was a woven tapestry of lies," breathed one of the other women, openly gawking in abject horror. Beside her Jessica Mulroney shifted uncomfortably, seeming to reassess events through an unsettlingly revised lens of her best friend's actions. In the wake of their dumbstruck silence, Meghan lurched up from her seat and reeled back against the polished oak wainscoting. One hand flew to her lips, dry heaves constricting her throat as the stark, lurid reality crashed over her in torrential waves with every fresh bombshell revelation. "No. No, no. This can't. You don't understand." She sputtered through trembling fingers. Eyes wide and overbright with unshed, desperate tears. Alison remained unmoved, somehow managing to summon a measure of empathy for the shattered woman despite the quaking fury emanating from Meghan in sickly miasmic waves. "I understand more than you realize," she stated with resolute evenness. "Everything here vindicates my own mounting suspicions and troubled observations as I was dragged further into your toxic web of deceit and compartmentalization." Her voice cracked ever so slightly, but pressed on undaunted. "This cycle of endless deflections, half-truths, and blatant manipulation to preserve the fantasy has reached its inevitable terminus, Meghan. The only question is how much deeper the depravity plunges from here." With a few more taps, the Archibald files expanded further. Seismic revelations of medical records, clinical procedure notes, and other files detailing events unfolding in the hours before and after the critical timeframe established by Buckingham Palace for the blessed birth of the newest royal scion. Potential missing links, distorted timelines, damning loose threads of discrepancy that if left dangling threatened to unravel Meghan's entire fabricated narrative. As the final bombshell artifacts began cycling across the screens, Meghan crumpled to her knees in full view of her once trusted coterie. She swayed and retched like a cornered animal, a piteous wail of denial and outrage bubbling from her lips. The level of betrayal, the meticulously stage-managed birth of their own flesh and blood, the sordid shell game of lies and doctored paper trails, proved simply too much to steadily confront. Shameless tears spilled down her contorted features as Meghan descended into paroxysms of hysteria. "So you see, there's simply no denying it any further," concluded Alison with a resigned sigh. The depth and staggering breadth of duplicity threaded through every aspect of this debacle. A tragedy born of sheer, grotesque audacity. As if in illustration, a final document flicked into view, apparent legal documentation outlining the steps to officially invalidate Archie's provenance and archetype heritage due to overwhelming evidence of his illegitimate and deceptively unethical origins. Meghan's wailing hit a crescendo of frantic, raw animalistic timbre. She staggered drunkenly to her feet, chest heaving with gasping whoops of disbelief as the raging maelstrom of consequences careened into inevitability around her. "Lies. You're all liars. I won't let you destroy everything we've accomplished." Her piercing shriek of denial and frenzied defiance seemed to snap the final thread remaining of her once indomitable pride and composure. Within moments she dissolved into a maelstrom of scrabbling, flailing limbs attempting to seize anything within reach. It took 3 alarmed members of her inner circle forcibly prying her hands away and wrestling Meghan into restraint as she flailed in wordless, primal anguish. Alison watched the tragic scene unfurl with a stoic, mournful countenance as the harsh, irrevocable lessons of consequence finally wrapped their coils around the woman she once called her dearest friend. Even as Meghan was bundled off in a seemingly catatonic state, Alison's